It's not my fault your species decided to abandon currency-based economics in favor of some philosophy of self-enhancement.
Hey, watch it. There's nothing wrong with our philosophy. We work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity.
What does that mean exactly?
It means we don't need money.
I'm through the tunnel. They can't get a firing solution on me.
There you are. Okay. I've got you.
Good day and welcome to Battle Space 9. My name's Carl. Today's episodes are Deep Space Nine's In the Cards and Battlestar Galactica's The Hand of God. And the theme is Needing a Victory.
My name's Tamra Brown, and I live in Los Angeles. It is much earlier where I am than where you all are. I'm a comedian and a writer of comedy, and an impressionist, and a comedy actress. And Carl and I know each other from college, Emerson College.
Expression necessary to evolution.
Hey, I'm Asterios Kokkinos. I'm a comedian in New York City, and I'm just a humongous fan of both of these shows and of Ronald D. Moore. I used to listen to his podcast. You remember that thing he would do?
His badly recorded podcast. I remember that.
He would. So the guy that was in charge of both these shows to different degrees, every time an episode would come out, he would just talk into his iPhone for an hour about the episode. So I'm a gigantic fan, and so it's cool to get to talk about these shows.
First up, I just want to say thank you for coming. I knew that I wanted some comedians for this particular episode, but you two cheered me up during the pandemic through comedy. The loudest podcast just makes me laugh, beginning to end. And Tamra, your TikTok was always... I still remember you had this sketch about anti-vaxxers on the Titanic. you had a line that was yeah, those lifeboats were ready a little too fast. I'll take my chances.
That's one of my favorites. The great thing about TikTok is how people heighten the game in the comments. That's always one of the fun things about TikTok.
Let's talk about this Deep Space Nine episode. In the Cards, written by Ronald D. Moore himself. Everyone on Deep Space Nine is depressed, even Captain Sisko. Suddenly, Nog finds out that Quark is auctioning off a rare Willie Mays baseball card. Fate is telling Jake that he must, in order to cheer up his father, get this baseball card. Unfortunately, he loses out to Dr. Geiger. Fortunately, Dr. Geiger is a weirdo who is developing a theory on how to cheat death, and he agrees to hand over the card in exchange for science stuff. Jake and Nog trade science stuff with O'Brien, with Bashir, Leela, Worf, Kira, and just when they've got everything, Geiger has vanished. After making some extremely wrong guesses, they are kidnapped by Weyoun, who demands to know why he and Geiger have been doing weird stuff in the room just below his. It can't be a coincidence. It is a coincidence. The matter is straightened out, Jake gets the card, and all the things Jake and Nog have done have cheered everyone up a little bit, especially Captain Sisko. What did you think of In the Cards?
This was my first DS9 episode. I was a big fan of The Next Generation, but I've never watched any other incarnation of Star Trek. I loved the line about they abandoned currency-based economics in favor of self-enhancement. Such an optimistic view of the direction that humanity is going to go, especially to see that. I could see that in the 90s. Maybe still having that optimism that we're not all going to be killed by capitalism.
And that's a big part of this episode, isn't it? The sort of Nog version of capitalism versus whatever humans have going on.
I thought it was fantastic. I forgot. I mean, I thought I remembered this episode because I remembered I was I think that's because it's like a riff on Catch-22, right?
It is.
With Milo Minderbender. But then I was wait a minute. No, it's not. Because I was thinking of the other one where Rom has to get like the self-sealing stem bolts to.
Right.
And then, so I was like, oh, wait, DS9 did 2 of these? And I was like, you know what? I bet I would like them both, because I really liked this episode. It made me rethink a lot of my opinions on Deep Space Nine, because a lot of my opinions were, like, set when I was a kid. And when I'm a kid, I'm like, this is Jake sucks. Like, this character sucks. Because I'm looking at it, I'm just like, oh, it's like worse Wesley Crusher. And like,
yeah, I thought he was kind of annoying. I was rooting for Nog. Like he was right. Like he didn't like this was his hard-earned gold bullion or whatever it was, and and Jake was, guilt tripping him into doing what he wanted to do. And then I got philosophical, because it's just like, well, wait a minute. Now, if humanity was actually capable of, moving toward away from a currency-based system, Jake would be of a mindset where he would find another way around this without having to barter in any way, because it's not like you stop wanting things in life.
Yeah. That line, we work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity. That is also a line from the movie Star Trek First Contact, also written by Moore. And he actually put this in so Nog could say, okay, but what's that mean exactly? Really? Come on, serious. Get down to brass tacks with this.
Yeah.
And I have found the older I get, the more I like the idea of a cashless society, even if it's hard to imagine. Like, if you didn't have currency, you should at least do nice things for people, and then make that your currency. Maybe?
But it's stupid, because it's like, well, they have credits.
Right.
It's like they just never explain what credits are, and it's just like, all right, look, is this like a utopia where we have machines that give us everything we want, or like, is this a society where you work and then Starfleet sends you credits and then you spend those credits on, I don't know, holodeck time? It's like, you got to pick one.
Yeah.
I assume they must have credits to interface with species that still use money, but Jake doesn't seem to have any of those, so he's shit out of luck there.
Yeah, you know what? They talk about that in Deep Space Nine, because like, or someone's like, we can give you credits for Latinum, and Quark's like, I don't want that shit. That shit sucks. Get your Confederate money out of here. I want gold.
Oh no. Oh God.
Yeah, but anyway, look. Long story short, now as I watch it as an adult, I'm like, you know what? This actor's trying. I don't know, what is he, like a 35-year-old man, like wearing little kid clothes? You know what? This guy, he's literally doing his best with the material. And and I loved that guy, the guest actor playing the spooky doctor, Dr. Geiger.
Dr. Geiger.
That guy, I thought the actor was great. I mean, Tamra, like as an actress, like what did you think of like Wayoon and Geiger and some of the acting in this episode?
I think my favorite character was Nog in this episode. I always liked Dr. Bashir. And his eyebrow acting.
Yes. I think you have to give Dr. Bashir sort of a secret most valuable player status on this episode, because his acting job, where he is like tired but a workaholic, is just so true. Like that he had the stress but dedication of a man who's like still editing his podcast episode 2 hours before it goes out.
Yeah, and the way he shot too. It's this episode was directed by Michael Dorn, aka Worf, which is dope that Worf is directing an episode. It's like he's shot so tight. Like you get the sense that he's like all tightly wound up, and it's so cramped. Like you get, like I've seen the med bay, it's huge, but like they shoot it like he's like his whole life is just like the walls are coming in on him, which is like, well, it's fucking true. The Dominion's about to roll the Federation.
Right.
And I also noticed, I don't know if this was a Michael Dorn specific directing style or just this is how DS9 is shot, but there was a lot of like film noir type lighting where people's faces were, like a stream of light was just hitting like one spot on somebody's face. There was a lot of really interesting like dark lighting choices.
You know,
Oh.
interestingly, that is a Star Trek thing. Like the weird, like Star Trek eye lighting. Like that's like a, yeah, they would do that. Where like all of a sudden it'd be like the brightest light on Captain Kirk's face, and you'd be like, "What is this motivated by? Like, is there like a lamp on the bridge, like hanging in front of his face? Like, you don't care. It looks cool."
A Tiffany lamp in the middle of the Enterprise.
Yeah, can someone shine this flashlight off of our captain's face?
The future is all about accent lighting.
Yeah,
Really?
The future is all about accent lighting blasted directly in your eyes.
This is our first Jake show that we've covered here on Battlespace 9. And I think I'm gonna defend the character a little bit because you're right. I mean, it's annoying what he's doing, but the thing I love about it is it's so teenage.
Yeah.
I think that this would not have worked well if Wesley Crusher had done it, because Wesley Crusher was literally always worshiping Jean-Luc Picard. Like there's no there's no off button for Wesley. But Wesley Crusher would not guilt trip Nog. No. He would be like, Nog, I could guilt trip you, but I'm from Starfleet and we don't lie. But because this is teenage in the sense that, like, it's good to want to give something nice for your dad. It is kind of self-centered to make it only about this card and to, like, disrupt everybody's life.
Yeah. Yes.
But,
and you know what? I was suspecting that Willie Mays was going to make an appearance. I thought that's what it was leading up to.
Yeah.
That would have been so 80s if he had done that. Now, I believe Willie Mays had passed on by this time.
No, he's still alive.
He's still alive?
Yeah.
What? Oh, wow.
He's in his 90s.
Don't they reference that one baseball player's frozen head at some point in Star Trek?
Really?
Yeah. Wait, Tamra, you might remember this. It was a Dodger or something, and he died, and then they cryo froze him, and but then the body kept melting. Like when we were young, there were a lot of jokes about this.
There was a lot of experimental cryo freezing in our youth, I feel like.
No one makes cryo freezing jokes anymore. I miss it. No. Futurama is the last vestige.
Yeah. And, there's like another interesting parallel here where it's like, well, the first episode of Deep Space Nine, it's like Jake and Nog robbing people. Like they commit crimes. And then this time it's like them going around with like a similar caper energy, but they're helping people. Like, that's fun. That's a fun little parallel.
That's the beautiful thing, I think, about this episode is they are helping people annoyingly.
Yeah.
And like when you think about our theme of needing a victory, what you really need is for someone to do something nice for you. And I feel like the fact that like they're doing things that are nice in like a neurotic way, almost by accident, is what makes this a good comedy.
How old do you think that character is supposed to be?
I believe Jake is 12 at the start of the series, so he would
5 years
be
in.
17 now. So he's like one of those high school juniors or seniors who basically looks like an adult already.
Yeah, I just felt his behavior in this episode was very that's something a 12-year-old would do, not a 17-year-old.
Yeah. I was thinking about comedy in Star Trek in general, and I think, in terms of great comedy, I think The Voyage Home is one of the best funny Star Treks. In terms of sort of bad comedy Star Treks, you have stuff like Profit and Lace and like sort of sexist farce. But then this episode it's kind of its own thing. It's kind of a sore thumb in a way. Like, I don't know. It's like funny in the way that like a This American Life episode is funny or something.
It's, what it is? It's charming.
It's charming.
Like, I'm not turning on Star Trek to bust a gut.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's like, oh, this is kind of nice. And like, I like that they put it right before the season finale, which is like, I think that's where they like I think that's when they like declare war on the Dominion and they mine the wormhole and like it's all stressful and tense and shit. And it's interesting because they did that in the last season of Deep Space Nine too, which is like a war and everybody's dying, but it's like, well, we'll still do a casino heist and we'll play baseball. What was it? Oh, right, Ted Williams. Ted Williams is Frozen Head. If you look him up on Memory Alpha.
I didn't know he was
Really?
frozen, or maybe I did know that.
We
I
should
don't
all know that, having gone to Emerson.
Yeah.
Our Emerson education has let us down in terms of frozen heads.
That's the thing. It's like
Emerson.
I read a lot about it where it was like Ted Williams obviously died rich and he was like, oh, let's just spend all this money and bring me back to life. But then like they just did a shitty job and like his head started to melt in real life.
Really?
This really happened.
So what's the status of the head now? Was it recovered somehow?
I mean, they refroze what they could.
Who wants a melty head?
That it's like look.
It's
Time
in
lost,
Cooperstown
his head
now.
lost.
Ted's half melted head is now on display in Cooperstown.
That would be amazing, actually. Love that. The last thing on my mind, just because you were talking about like the ages of the actors, is like, oh my god, the kid playing Jake is like twice the kid playing Nog's height. You see that?
I love
shit?
it. Yeah.
It's like they were both cast at the same time, and then one of them just became a giant.
And if you enjoy the passage of time, or if you enjoy the movie Boyhood, then I encourage you to watch like the first and the last episodes of Deep Space Nine, because it's like, holy shit!
Yeah.
Like, did Sirach Lofton like get stretched? My God.
Going back to comedy, though, I always felt like it in Star Trek, and again, my reference is The Next Generation, but the comedy was always coming from Worf reacting to things, or there's a lot of comedy in like it's all about the acting and the characters' behavior more so than like there's not like zingers or lines, or the few times the times when I think that they are trying to do like a comedic line, I don't know if that really is pulled off, but
it's kind of less funny when it's supposed to be funny in a way. And one thing I like about this as a style is it's kind of a Shaggy Dog story. I think it slowly becomes funnier over the course of the episode. To talk about Dr. Geiger, that guy wishes he was on the X-Files so bad to me.
How do you know he wasn't, Carl?
Maybe he was. We should check. It's interesting when he is telling his theory of cellular ennui. Star Trek is known for having like techno stuff, obviously, technobabble. You can't be perfectly sure that it's a crazy theory. You have to go with it a little bit. Because we, Trek fans, I think, are kind of trained to sort of like take technobabble and deconstruct it.
I hear you. I mean, well, he wanted to entertain his cells. I feel like that was a clean delineation from technobabble, because I feel like there was a point he said like make your cells laugh or something like that, where it just was like, okay, now I guess now we understand that this guy's not even nuts. You know what? I think this is a thing where in the 90s, in this era, it would be more clear that this guy is nuts. But now that we live in a time where there are probably people in our lives that we think are reasonable people until they say something like, oh, I just have this cryogenic chamber that entertains my cells. And you're like, okay.
Like, do you think this is a con man, or do you think this is a sincere but misguided?
Well, I mean, I think the evidence in that he's sincere in his beliefs is also like probably like his funniest line, where he's like, and all you got to do is you lay in this egg for 8 hours a day, and then you live forever. And then we see him later, and he's like, he just gets out of the egg, and he was like, I was kind of my cells were getting bored after hour 5. It's like, but you still stayed those extra 3 hours. Like, this dude's a true believer. He's in the egg. This is the Eggman.
That's true. He's so devoted to pseudoscience. He's going to do the work.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you could transcribe his pitch about this egg and what it does to keep you alive forever, and post that on some sort of, new age mommy group on Facebook, and you better believe people are going to be starting to look for these cell entertaining eggs somewhere.
Oh yeah, because it just makes enough sense. It's like, cellular board, okay. And then he like throws in lines where he's like, well, I'm going to teach the mitochondrial tricks. And it's like, what does that mean? Are you introducing new information? Okay, well, are you refreshing my souls? All right, whatever. But then I think this is like, I don't believe at this point we know that Wayun's a clone.
No.
And so it's interesting, even in this comedy episode, there's foreshadowing where Wayun's like, oh my God, I'm also into like cellular regeneration and trying to live forever. And it's like, yeah, because you're the 47th version of this guy.
I love that. I really do. I was thinking about what it must be like for this to be your first Deep Space Nine episode. And it's kind of interesting, Louise Fletcher, of course, is a brilliant actress and plays a character who normally is very bad, but she is not too bad this week. In fact, she's saying some things that make a lot of sense. And one thing I note about this episode is even Wayun is not that bad in it, and it kind of makes me wish. It's Jake is a writer. Jake is an aspiring writer. And it kind of makes me wish that we could see some of his short stories, because I bet he's the sort of writer who's good at he's not good at lying, as we see, but he is good at talking to weirdos and getting to know characters. And I bet that's what's for sale from Jake Sisko, the short story writer.
Yeah, because I think 2 seasons from now, Jake is trapped on Deep Space Nine, and he's a reporter. And he does establish a rapport with Wayun.
That's the thing. Everyone will talk to him, and you need that.
Yeah, he's the captain's kid.
That's
You're not gonna.
That's the other thing.
I'm not gonna give him the cold shoulder.
I like Jake, but he does say, "Do you know who my father is?" a lot throughout the series. That's all I'm saying. Just be your own man a little bit. That's my only advice.
Good advice.
One thing I liked about this, as we get into the second half, is we have the conspiracy theorists, and we sort of see Jake come to the wrong conclusion about Kai Wynn. He's like, of course, Kai Wynn must have kidnapped Dr. Geiger. It's the only thing that makes sense. And then it's like, doodly, doodly, doodly. I can't believe you accused the Kai of kidnapping and murder. It's so easy to be wrong, I guess.
I thought that was funny. I like that. Because it's Jake wasn't off. He was just a little early.
She has maybe committed some light terrorism in season 1.
That's fine.
We're trying to let bygones be bygones at this point in the show. But I do like the sort of sitcom tell of in the cold open, Sisko is told Kai Wynn's coming, and he rolls his eyes ugh. So it's dear audience, just so you know.
I think it's neat that it's yeah, look, she's a character with her own agenda. She's trying to protect her homeland here. Mm-hmm. And I remember as a kid watching this episode and being surprised that she went to Sisko and was look, I genuinely don't know what to do. Because I'm yeah, she's going to side with the Dominion. She's a bad guy.
Yeah.
But she's look, I don't know if the Dominion's best friend planet either. I don't know what to do. I was it's a neat shade of gray for a character.
Yeah, it's also that trope where if your hero and your villain agree on something, it's difficult times ahead.
Yeah.
She also says in this, I tried to get the Orb of Wisdom, but it wouldn't tell me anything. And at the end of the series, we find out she has never had an orb experience like other Bajorans have. And she feels rejected because of that.
There's only 8 of these orbs, right? Everyone on this planet gets to touch an orb and go into a magic dream. How do they have tickets? Do you have to sign up with an app? How the hell do you get the orb time?
There is some sort of scientific proof of your religion if you have things like the orbs, isn't there?
Yeah, you touch the thing and you get to talk to your dead wife.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
No, but Tamra, your dead wife talks like a weird robot. It's it's not great.
Oh, okay.
She calls you the
then.
Cisco, and it's that's weird. That's my last name. I mean the Kokkinos, the Brown. What? Stop it. Stop it.
God.
Stop. And also stop looking like my dead wife. That's weird too.
Yeah.
All right, then. I won't use an orb to contact my dead wife.
I was thinking about how hard it is to give a good gift nowadays. What makes a good gift?
Well, um, I would like a Willie Mays card. That would be a good gift for
Yeah, I
me.
also want one of those.
I always let people know. I think I'm an easy person to buy gifts for. One of the things that makes me laugh the hardest, I don't know why, but I think it's very funny to give somebody a photo of yourself as a gift. I
Oh,
think
hell
it's just
yeah.
like a T-shirt with your picture on it. I had this ring making kit at one point where I would like print out little, you were supposed to just like paint the ring, but I would make these little like photo printouts and glue it and give people a ring with my portrait inside. And I find that so funny. It's like so arrogantly, oh, they're gonna love this. It cracks me up.
That is the danger. Sometimes people make the gifts they give like a part of their branding. That's a mistake. Like if I gave a podcast subscription to somebody who didn't like podcasts.
Your own podcast, though.
Yeah, exactly.
That's more.
Happy birthday.
Here's my voice for 17 hours. Enjoy. I know the last gift that I gave somebody, it was a friend's birthday last week. He's very into like astrology and things like that. So I got him a session with a healer, a 15-minute session with a healer, and a crystal, and I decorated the bag.
Nice. I guess you got to give experiences. Like it should be a thing that only you would know that they would like, or else Amazon gift card.
Yeah, everybody loves that. Look, none of us like it. Look, Amazon's ruining the world. Okay. But
Yeah.
Mom wants it. Just give her the gift. Just give her the thing. Don't give her the lecture.
So, I mean, when I'm given an Amazon gift card, as much as I'm, down with corporations, but it's like, well, I mean, you gotta use it.
The damage has been done.
If you don't use it, then they keep it, and everybody loses.
There you go.
Exactly.
I just want to talk about one thing, and that is lions and tigers and bears. Now, this is a very bad joke. Did it make you laugh, though? I'm curious.
No.
Okay.
It was very cute.
It was the oh my that blew it from me.
That was too far?
Yeah.
Before I'm glad we all agree. Because it's like before that I was like, oh, you know what? They set that up and I did not see that coming.
Perfectly. Yes. And then the oh my was just a little too on the nose.
Yeah, exactly. But then you know what? But then I'm like, you know what? This is a show for kids. I bet if I were 12.
Sex and the City several times throughout that series would use lions and tigers and bears oh my as a joke punchline all the time. They did it a few times where like somebody would set down a plate of dessert pastries and one of the characters would be like cookies, eclairs, and something, oh my, and it was supposed to be like they did that all the time in that series, and I was always just like, ugh, it's so annoying.
Yeah, that's real bad.
The backstory on that joke is that literally everyone tried to get Ronald D. Moore to not put it in, but he insisted. I would say that joke might have worked on something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like a more winky genre-y kind of humor. I just want to put out there, to Ronald D. Moore, I think you're allowed one joke like that per career, and this is yours. If there's another joke that bad, there's going to be consequences. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Is he still making new shows?
Yes, he's doing For All Mankind, a excellent Apple TV show.
Oh, I've heard that's good.
Yeah. Have you seen that, Asterios?
I have not. I forgot it existed. Apple TV and we're on like different wavelengths. I know there's good stuff there. It's just one streaming service too many.
Yeah. You have to carefully pick which streaming services you have, so as not to go to the poorhouse. For All Mankind is basically what if they continued the space program, and what if the USSR was the first ones to land on the moon.
Oh.
And then the US had to get tough and catch up. And it's fascinating. Battlestar Galactica, The Hand of God. Life sucks. The fleet is almost completely out of Tillium. Boomer and Crashdown find a motherlode of new Tillium, but unfortunately it's guarded by a Cylon base star. Frustrated and desperate, Adama decides to engage the Cylons. It's going to require some wacky outside-of-the-box thinking. They're going to have to hide some ships and freighters. They're going to have to do some precision flying to blow up the only explodable thing on the heavily guarded base, just like in Star Wars. Too bad Starbuck is still wounded from her recent adventure and can't fly. It's Apollo who has to blow up the thing. Compounding this problem is that Cylon expert Gaius Baltar...
Did you come up with this write-up, or are you reading from some sort of television description? Because
No.
if it is like an official, I love that had to blow up the thing.
No, this is me. This is all me.
Okay, I was hoping that made its way into the Peacock description, episode description.
I wish, yeah. Cylon expert Gaius Baltar doesn't know which thing is explodable, but he lies and says he does. Luckily, he's right somehow. The thing blows up, the fleet has enough fuel to go on for years, the crew is happy, and both Baltar and Laura Roslin begin to think that they might be instruments of God. What did you think of The Hand of God?
This was absolutely the first time I had seen any Battlestar Galactica at all. I've never seen a clip of the show. I had heard, I feel like in the early 2000s, so many of my friends were just absolutely nuts over the show. And I always heard what a favorite character Starbuck was. And now I see why. But the thing that struck me the most about it, and you said that this is, both of these shows are so exemplary of their time period. I'd say I don't know if I personally felt that DS9 was completely very indicative of the 90s, but this was definitely the early 2000s, because as soon as Edward James Olmos said any line, sometimes you have to roll the hard six. It was just so David Caruso. I wanted to hear that The Who starting up. You just immediately heard Baba O'Reilly play right after. It was just so early 2000s.
This is one of my favorite episodes. I loved it. I think that their space battle episodes are the ones they do the best, and they're the ones I remember the most. I didn't see the twist coming at the end. It had one of my favorite moments, because I remember when I'm young and I'm seeing Luke Skywalker going through the Death Star trench. I'm always you could slow down a little bit. You could slow down a little bit, and Lee is going through this crazy tube, and then at one point he stops his ship and looks around, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably what you should do. You probably shouldn't be speeding through this crazy outer space obstacle course as fast as you possibly can. And so I remember at that point being really impressed with the show. You think you want to see the zippy space thing, but instead it's kind of this slow thing, and they're moving models around on a board, and they're planning and plotting. I just thought it was really smart and really cool. I loved it as a kid, and I loved it now.
I loved the precision flying scenes you're talking about. It was based on the Death Star sequence to some extent, but the thing about that Star Wars sequence is it's great, but I really feel you don't really get a sense of where they are. There's the trench, and I guess there's a swarm of planes protecting Luke and everybody as they take the long trip down the corridor. But it's kind of hard to visualize. This, much easier to visualize. And the awkwardness of the precision flying really sold it to me. You kind of get the sense of playing a video game where you have to just desperately not go too far one way or too far the other, or you'll blow up. For the people I'm talking to who haven't seen Battlestar, I'm always curious, what the hell do you think is going on between Baltar and Number 6?
I got that she was a Cylon agent. I guess I was thinking these were flashbacks. That's what I was thinking it was. Yes. I didn't know that she was in his head.
One problem with watching Audie's TV shows is I really feel that was the decade where people enjoyed having flashbacks without announcing that they were flashbacks. Even Breaking Bad would always be we're going to show a scene now that happens 2 years in advance, and we're not going to tell you. Why? Because we're Breaking Bad. That's why. We can do that. But basically, it's all in the present. The colonial fleet is refugees from the Cylons having blown up most of humanity literally 36 days ago. It's been just over a month. And at this point, Baltar begins to believe he is an instrument of the Cylon god, and Roslyn begins to believe that she has a spiritual role to play as well. And I'm just curious, how hard do you think it would be to convince somebody that they are an instrument of God?
The thing is, like, this episode kind of puts a thumb on the scale, because, like, all right, so Rosalind sees 12 snakes, and we know there's 12 Cylons. And so it's like, all right, well, that's... she doesn't know there's 12 Cylons, I guess, at this time, but we do. Yeah. But and then, like, the other lady's like, everything you said, it's happening to you is in this book. And it's like, all right, well, I guess there's, like, no mystery here. Like, God is talking, or her gods are talking to her. Like, that. It's just like, all right, that's it.
I think with Baltar, you kind of get it because, like, you know, he's got this beautiful Cylon agent massaging him. With Roslyn, it's a little more of a prophecy, though. How close does the prophecy have to be to real life for people to start believing it?
I mean, I think it would be very easy to convince.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the problems right now is that everybody believes that they're instruments of God, especially since people seem to be so particularly eager to grab onto meaning in things that don't mean anything. A lot of the conspiracy theorists, they're like, oh, this and this are just way too similar. That cannot be a coincidence. And it's like, it's right. Literally what it is. It is a coincidence. Like you can connect anything to anything. If you try, a friend of, I know me and Asterios have a friend named Zach Sherwin who has this great show called The Crossword Show. And what he does in that show is he has the audience and his guests solve a crossword, and each word that ends up in the crossword, he ends up connecting each of them together by the end of it. And it's just like so clearly, like, it's just mind blowing when you watch how he does it, because it seems like he's doing some sort of magic trick, but it's also just like, oh, that's because you can connect this lamp next to me to, you know, whatever small town your uncle was born in. There's a way to make a connection in like less than 3 steps there. There just is.
You know, we are about to get into stuff with the with the colonial religion. There's a big 2-parter coming up, and I'm curious. You know, I've had a good time watching these shows. That's the stuff that I'm curious the most whether it holds up, and I bet it's going to hold up in ways I don't expect, but also be kind of weird. We shall see. So Ronald D. Moore is great, but this episode was written by Bradley Thompson and David Weddle, who also worked for Deep Space Nine, and who currently work for All Mankind. And in fact, at one point in season 1 of For All Mankind, a character mentions, you know, we've just got to risk it. We've got to roll the hard 6.
No.
Yeah. And another character goes, what is this hard 6 you keep saying? What's going on? So that's
What a wink.
What a wink, yeah. So that is my hope someday to have written so many things that like my random verbal neuroses wind up in multiple scripts.
So the writer of this and the writer of the Deep Space Nine episode both write for the Apple show.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's why there are no writing jobs anymore.
I know. It's a bummer. What did you think of Liadama and Starbuck in this episode?
It's like 42 episodes of this like super handsome like daddy's boy moping that people don't think he's as good a pilot as Starbuck. And it's like, yeah, you're not. That's okay. You can also be a very good pilot and just not as good as the best pilot in the galaxy. Like it's all right. Like, so I think that his like B plot of like overcoming his self-doubt, like, it kind of read a little hollow to me. But I mean, the stuff I liked in this episode was all the planning and plotting and scheming and like, you know, cool little models on a thing and strike 1 and strike 2 and like ships like a 5-to-1 disadvantage in fighting these robot ships. I just thought all that stuff was crazy cool.
You know, it's a simple plan in a way. Basically, like, we distract them, then we hide, then we blow them up. And it's like, but it's also like, what else do you need? You know, the best plans are simple. More than other episodes, this kind of reminded me of like military fiction. If you didn't know anything to get your dad, you could get him this episode, and he'd probably like it pretty well, I think. Just any given dad. All we can do is wait and hope you don't make any mistakes. I never wanted this kind of responsibility. The Cylons never asked us what we wanted. Welcome to the big leagues. That's all, you know.
Oh my goodness, those lines. I did enjoy the boot camp aspect of the episode. Was Adama coaching Starbuck on whether her knee is ready to command the spaceship. She's trying to pretend that she can hold the pedal, and then a spaceship has a pedal. A spaceship has a pedal. It's just like
everybody loves
when
pedals.
Jerry Seinfeld did the bit about, do pilots have keys to the plane? It's like the spaceships have.
Starbuck is torn up because she recently was in an episode where she like got marooned on a planet and had to find her way out due to an unusually gooey spaceship. And I like the
spaceship is gooey as Ted Williams' head.
It's as gooey as Ted Williams' head. I don't think there's enough in this series of like Lee Adama and Starbuck fighting together. Like, there's rarely like one of them's the pilot and one of them's the co-pilot. Looking back to what you said, Asterios, I kind of feel like Lee Adama is basically a character from 30-something.
Yes.
And it's kind of a Cyclops Wolverine thing as well in X-Men terms.
Yeah,
But,
no, I get that like Salieri can be like an interesting character, but like I kind of just want to see these space planes shoot other space planes and kick ass. It kind of seems sexist to me that like this dude's like, everybody likes the girl pilot, but nobody likes me. It's like, yeah, shut up. She's cool. She's a good pilot. You should just be happy that you have a really good pilot here.
It has always been a thing with Lee that his relationship with his father Adama is like almost skin-crawlingly dysfunctional. If you see them in the pilot, he's like screaming at his father in a very teenage way.
So Lee is not buying any Willie Mays cards for Adama.
No,
Got
Lee
it.
would never.
Okay.
And you could never do an episode like In the Cards on Battlestar Galactica because it's just too serious.
Yeah.
God damn it. The story about the lighter and Adama giving Lee the lighter, I thought that was fine. It was good. Not bad. I really enjoyed the celebration scene. The deck is just full of all these people who we have come to know over these past 10 episodes, and you can sort of look through them and have, the show has been on long enough at this point that you can look through and have a bunch of small memories kind of associated with each one. And I really like that music, that kind of Irish/New Age. That is called Wander My Friends. And I really like the moment where Lee is shaking the champagne in the same manner as a jerk off motion. I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, there's I forgot how many of the classic Battlestar lines are from this episode. Silence never asked us what we wanted. Sometimes you got to roll the hard 6. That the Bear McCreary the celebration theme. I'm like, oh wow, they get. And then this is the episode where Baltar goes from thinking he's going crazy and that he's either hallucinating this lady or she's a computer chip to, oh shit, maybe God is real and is talking through this lady because I had no idea where to bomb and now I do.
It almost makes too much sense.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of my problem with it in retrospect is that there is really no other explanation. I mean, I guess you could invent some kind of theory where you're like, well, look, he's a super genius. He must have subconsciously knew where that tank was. But it's that was a really blurry photo of, looked like a sonogram. I don't know where that. And then the thing with leader dying of a wasting disease, seeing 10 snakes. It's like, it's too on the nose.
Have either of you seen the 70s Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah, I tried. It's real bad.
I know.
That would be hilarious if I was like, yes, that.
Yeah, that's
sure,
your one.
That I have seen.
Yeah, that's your one. The thing about it is it feels like a church basement play to me. The original 70s Battlestar. Like everyone on the 70s Battlestar looks like they were on the student council at high school or something. Like it's the most earnest and like stilted and purposefully expositional type of science fiction. I understand you can't really reboot Battlestar without including that element of it. And I'm just trying to, I find a lot of times the problem with remembering Battlestar is that like most of the time when you talk about it, pretty soon you default to like, man, I hated the ending. But I really want to sort of watch these episodes as if for the first time again. And I guess I'm impressed knowing what they're about to do, how logical they made it being an instrument of God seem.
Did everybody hate the ending of Battlestar Galactica?
Oh yeah, it's notoriously bad,
Oh,
and it stinks because it kind of tanks the show. It's like, I think
is there a good series that people enjoy that everybody doesn't hate the final episode how it ends?
Yes, both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and I think that and I think that like Vince Gilligan, who's like another sci-fi showrunner, like he was like an X-Files and Lone Gunman guy. Oh like, yeah. I think after everybody hated the end of BSG, Gilligan was like, all right, I have to absolutely nailed the last episode. Because same thing with Lost. It's like, if you blow the ending, it ruins the replay value. I don't know why it does.
I know. Mm-hmm. This was definitely the thing to do in the oddies, which is to have a mysterious show and then a hated, disappointing ending. You know, Lost is kind of, it was a trend. Everyone was doing it. It was like skinny jeans. And Lost is kind of the most famous, I guess. But it's just that problem of we got to keep the mystery going. We got to keep the mystery going. Okay, now we got to end the show. Too many mysteries. Abort. And it's a shame.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's certain shows like Lost that back themselves into a corner, because when the whole show was about like, well, this thing wasn't what you thought it was, but now that's not what you thought it was, but now that's not what you thought it was. It really backs itself into a corner. But I'm curious now if Battlestar, if I want to finish watching the series just to be disappointed, or if I'll just look on Wikipedia to see how it ends.
I'll say this. I don't hate all of the finale. I think that the problem is like by the time they started it, there were like, let's say 45 ongoing plot lines, and they only had time to close 30 of those 45 plot lines. And I would say that maybe about 15 of those 30 of those 45 plot lines, they closed it off pretty good. But there were some major ones, and we'll talk about that once we get there on Battlespace 9.
I do think it's, in the 90s, it was very apparent that something was from the 70s because the look of it was just so completely different. But from the late 90s up until today, like visually, Battlestar Galactica could be a new show if you were just watching it. But it's the things like, the Adama lines that date it. Mm-hmm. But I think that like even Deep Space Nine, visually it could be a show that's on now, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I was like, wow, this looks really good. I was like, these plane scenes look good. And there's also, I kind of appreciated that there was not like a ton of CGI in it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, supposedly they did not have a very big special effects budget. So they knew they had to prioritize. And one of the reasons they made it so character focused was they sort of figured, look, at best we'll have the money for like one really good space battle every 6 months or so.
Pick your space battles.
Pick your space battles. That's what you've got to do. And as a result, you get stuff like, Lee Adama flying around awkwardly and tensely. In the 70s, 80s, 90s, that's all some kind of film. Well, watching Star Trek, I can't help but feeling like I'm on my grandma's house watching 90s Trek. I was also going to say this is a good place for the episode, too. The week before this, we had Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, which is a stupid farce. The week before that, we had the infamous torture device where people torture people. Similar to, speaking of Audie's television, similar to like Freaks and Geeks, there was a time when someone came to Judd Apatow and said, all right, Judd Apatow, we need more victories. This show is too depressing. We need some victories. And likewise, I think they came to Moore and said, okay, we need a victory of some kind. So please, for God's sake, we
And
want
this
to
was
renew
it,
you.
this episode.
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm glad I caught the victory.
One thing I like about these two is that it's kind of the difference between a bunch of small personal victories and like the one big military victory. Which of these shows on the theme of needing a win did you actually enjoy watching more?
Good question. I'd say it's pretty equal. I mean, the difference is I think the reason that Star Trek is the sci-fi show that I kind of locked onto is because it's a little bit more a day in the life. No, I mean, I guess that's not true. There's certainly episodes this is how humanity's about to die. But no, this episode of Deep Space Nine was very just a day in the life, and that was very refreshing. So that's
Yeah.
enjoyable. And this one was certainly the Battlestar episode was certainly the we're all gonna die today if this doesn't happen. So yeah, I was down with that too. I keep forgetting to mention how pleased I was to see Mary McDonnell.
Mary McDonnell, awesome.
I kept thinking of Independence Day and how you could easily
Yeah.
put these two together. But I guess Independence Day was 10 years earlier because that was like, wouldn't that come out like maybe 96 or something? I don't remember.
Yep.
But
Yep.
she's the president's wife in Independence Day, and she's the president in this one.
It's so funny because, again, this is something I first watched the show like 20 years ago. And at the time, I was a lot more like optimistic. And so the whole idea that like, well, these people love democracy I was like, okay. And like, they love democracy. They have a line of succession. They vote. They have an election. I was like, that makes sense. Now I'm watching this now and I'm like, yeah, I don't think anybody would care. I think they would all just be like, hey, Adama, can you keep us alive? Like, I think immediately it would become a military dictatorship. And I also think everyone would be cool with that.
Yeah.
Well, this is the question. I mean, I think I'm completely fascinated by how that element will play as we get into season 2. This is not a perfect operation. And there are people who feel like Roslin has it out for them. There are people who feel like other ships are getting more privileges. Recently, we had basically the water supply was taken out, and there were water riots.
Not too far future.
I know.
Realistic future.
You know, this show was created in the shadow of 9/11, but as I watch it, I can't help worrying about like the effects of climate change.
When I think of Battlestar, I think of Adama dive bombing the Battlestar Galactica through the atmosphere of New Cobol, launching a bunch of fighters, and then warping away. I think of that amazing space battle in the finale. Like, I think of the tension between the Battlestar Galactica and the Battlestar Pegasus. I think of that stuff. I don't think of like, should we lie to the people about how much water we have? It's like I don't care. Can I see these planes flying around? Like I don't care about like Billy losing his optimism. Fucking Billy. Remember Billy?
Billy.
Yeah.
How many seasons are there of this show?
5, 6?
4 seasons, but they did that Audie's thing of like treating a half season as a season.
Yeah, because Sci-Fi Channel had nothing, so they were like,
Yeah.
you'll get 8 Battlestars this year and then 6 next year.
We've got the season premiere of Battlestar. Next week is the season finale of Battlestar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It was awful. It was the same thing they did with Mad Men.
Oh God.
Yeah, but that's the fucking problem when like you're directly commenting on shit. Is that like at the time it's cool because like they're talking about the war in Iraq.
Yeah.
And now, like, you watch it and, like, you're 20 years older and you're like, this guy's going to keep droning on and on about his goddamn opinion about the war in Iraq.
It is weird to sort of see subversive political comedy comedy or commentary from, like, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because it's like looking at a yearbook or something, right? Do either of you enjoy watching The West Wing now?
I mean, I did when I was a kid. I bet if I watched it now, I'd be like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of hearing. What's the name of the showrunner of The West Wing? Sorkin. It's like, oh my God, will somebody fucking slap the pen out of this guy's hand?
When this is such a risky plan, and Colonel Ty says it'll cost us, but actually they seem to get off pretty okay. They lose 2 pilots.
They lose Chuckles.
He
gets
poor
shot.
Chuckles.
He gets shot in the. That poor guy gets blown up. I hated that.
Yeah.
I hate it when the pilots die on the show. I feel so bad for the goddamn pilots.
And there's only 30 pilots left. Like that.
Yes.
That 2 is like a tenth of their capacity.
Yes, they also can't make new planes.
These episodes have been in the cards from Deep Space Nine, The Hand of God by Battlestar Galactica. And just if you had to pick one, who wins this week? Tamra, you said both episodes were pretty equally enjoyable.
I think maybe I like the Deep Space Nine one a little better.
Okay, Deep Space Nine. Asterios?
Yeah, I enjoyed watching the Deep Space Nine one too, because I was just like, hey, look at all these actors having a good time.
Yeah.
It was just kind of fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree, and that it's a win for Deep Space Nine this week. And I feel like this is the quintessential thing where, like, in the 90s, we probably would have thought this kind of plot was hokey.
Yes.
But now, I wish there was a reality show where every week Jake and Nog would go around and improve people's lives.
Yes.
Watch that. Thank you, Tamra. Thank you, Asterios. What would
Thank you, Carl.
What would you like to plug, Tamra?
Well, I have a movie coming out called Self-Reliance, and it is written and directed by Jake Johnson. So I'm not exactly sure where it's coming out, but look for a film called Self-Reliance that I was lucky enough to be a part of. And you can always follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Hey Tamra.
Hey, you can always hear me on the Loudest Podcast. It's very easy to find. You just Google it pops right up. And yeah, if you enjoyed me here, you're going to like me there. I had a really good time on the show. It was really nice of you to invite me on. Thanks so much. Like, I wouldn't have spent the day watching Deep Space Nine and Battlestar Galactica unless I was asked to be on a podcast. It was a nice way to spend the day. So thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Tune in next week for Deep Space Nine, The Collaborator, and Battlestar Galactica, Colonial Day. The theme is politics. I have been Carl, and remember, I'm an instrument of God. Good night.